when the assassination attempt against Trump happened, I saw a lot of people going to Twitter to post the general sentiment of it's Jover. That the election was over. They all became very passive in their view of history, and they started talking about that this basically locks Trump in, that this shooter has tried to take Trump's life. Now, there was a few things that made me question this. Immediately, people started making the Theodore Roosevelt comparisons, but most people don't know this, that Theodore Roosevelt, when he was shot, he didn't win that election. He actually went on to lose it. So, number one, getting shot does not mean necessarily going to win. There's been multiple American politicians who have got shot and then went on to lose their election. It could help, like for example, when Ronald Reagan got shot, it led to a 20-point jump in the polls. So getting shot does not necessarily mean you're going to win an election. That's the first thing. It could lead to a temporary boost in the polls, and that's possible with Trump, as it happened with Ronald Reagan. But it doesn't mean surefire victory. Historically, there's not a precedent for that. That's the first thing. But another thing that people will say is that the combination of the bad Biden debate performance, combined with the speculation about him being replaced and about his ability to do the job considering his age, being topped off with this assassination attempt, these combination of factors, one after the other, has created a momentum that is the true Trump train, and it's going to all the way across the Biden camp. And so I've been waiting for post-assassination polling data, because there have been polls that have come out post-assassination, but they have been polls that were either done the day before the assassination, a few days before the assassination, or the day of the assassination, before everybody had found out. And so the polling data could have changed from morning to afternoon, or from when people found out at different times of the day, because, you know, people wake up different, people have different schedules, people get their news in different ways, they got it from printed media, TV media, etc. So the polling data, we just have post-assassination polling data finally in. And I want you guys to remember, in the MAGA world, in the Trump world, the way that they were talking about this is that Trump's going to be up 10 to 15 points. 10 to 15 points Trump's going to be up. That this election's over, that it was decided in Pennsylvania by that shooter. Trump has now been elected the next president of the United States. Irrespective if Biden is the nominee, or he switched out with the most likely replacement, which is going to be Biden's VP, Kamala Harris. This would be done because of the ease of transferring the fundraising apparatus, the difficulty in trying to maneuver around Kamala Harris and the voters that would piss off, and it just being the next logical step on top of the national name recognition that she's built up since not only jumping in the Biden campaign in 2020, but of course being vice president for the last 4 years. So I was waiting for these margins. I was waiting for what they were saying they were feeling within Trump world. And I'm not in Trump world. I watch Trump world from a distance, but I'm not a Trumper. So I cannot give you the feelings of Trump world or Trump leaning voters or Trump leaning independents, which is what Trump definitely wants to target, wants to get. And so now that we have the post-assassination polling, let's go through some of it. Harris and Trump. So this is a hypothetical Harris and Trump matchup. 44 to 44. Trump and Biden, 43 to 41. Trump and Harris tied nationally, and Trump ahead 2 points within the margin of error for ISPOS, with a sample size of just under 1,000 voters. And you're like, okay, well, that's one poll. That's ISPOS, and it's under 1,000 voters. That's just one poll. This is not enough. I mean, this would indicate that it had basically no effect on polling around the country. So, I mean, could this really be true? And so here's another poll. Here it is from YouGov, a very respected pollster with over 1,400 participants. That's their sample size. Trump 43, Biden 41, which is actually Biden up 1 extra point since the previous YouGov poll. Biden up 1 point from the previous poll post-assassination attempt, which, I mean, that is within the margin of error, so I don't want you to read too much into that. And Trump here and Biden here is matching what ISPOS said. So it seems to be a trend with very little to, I mean, at least in this one, +1 Biden movement. But that's not it. Here's Harris X with a sample size of almost 2,000. of almost 2,000 participants. Trump, 51%, down 1 point, compared to Biden, 49%, again up 1 point. Then they have a Trump-Biden-Kennedy matchup with Trump up 1 point, up to 43%, and then Biden up 2 points compared to the previous head-to-head matchup, Kennedy down 3 points. So this seems to show general election polling that stayed stable for Biden. Biden has not seen a big sink post-assassination attempt. Donald Trump has not seen a big boost nationally post-assassination attempt from any of these pollsters, including YouGov, which is an extremely respected pollster. And if you break down some of this data from HarrisX, because HarrisX decided that they wanted to ask a few more questions, and they have the largest sample size out of all three polls, they decided to talk about the actual shooting itself. They decided to ask those being polled what they think of the shooting, with the question being, what is the root cause of the Trump shooting? Now, this data is kind of all over the place. There's no number one answer that has a majority, like over 50, 60. This is all over the place, some with larger percentages than others, but none over 30%. The number one answer was a deranged shooter. So basically, a crazy guy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, going out and trying to shoot Trump. 24%. Okay? You can't really take much politics out of this besides, another deranged shooter. And historically speaking, if you go through everybody that tried to assassinate the president, even including, I believe, John Wilkes Booth, they all had a series of mental problems or derangements, as I guess you could call them. Then you go to the next one, and it's Trump and his own rhetoric as the second largest root cause of the shooting. Let me say that again. The second largest root cause of the shooting, according to this poll, when polling Americans. Now, again, these are all numbers at like 23, 24. So there isn't a large consensus here. But the second largest after crazy is Trump and his own rhetoric. Now, the deranged shooter one is easy to explain. This one might take a little bit more difficulty, especially if you're a Trump supporter or if you're somebody who doesn't understand how somebody could come to this conclusion. But I'll explain it because I've heard from multiple people why they would blame Trump for this. And I could say that myself, I do believe that Trump has helped contribute to the political temperament in the country. Donald Trump said that if Joe Biden wins, there will not be a country anymore. Donald Trump has said that maybe the Second Amendment people should do something about Hillary if she tries to take their guns. Donald Trump has tweeted out pictures of Joe Biden hogtied, thrown into a back of a pickup truck as a decal on somebody's vehicle. He has posted images of videos, which later he deleted, which were calling for direct violence against his political opponents. When people were getting beaten in his crowd, he was saying, I'll cover their expenses for the people who were getting beaten and who were protesting his events. He openly mocked the hammer attack on Paul Pelosi, which was an attempt to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, to break her kneecaps and torture her to send a message to not oppose Trump's crusade against the deep state. Donald Trump, like maybe 2.5 weeks ago, was saying that the kidnapping plot of Gretchen Whitmer was fake. It was just all fraudulent. So this is somebody who has personally downplayed political violence towards other people, kind of openly flirted with it on some occasions, even if he's never making direct calls. And on January 6th, after selling the lie that the election was stolen and causing a national panic over the state of our democracy, and his supporters, in a rage over the idea that democracy was about to die, charged the Capitol, and he sat there for hours doing nothing, sitting on his ass, locked in his room reportedly, watching the events unfold on TV. He had full understanding of what was happening, and it was under his authority. He could have done something, but he didn't until after hours of damage were done and hundreds of police officers were injured. And so if you've seen Trump, who his supporters love him for his rhetoric, they love that he's fiery, they love that he's divisive, they love that Molotov cocktail to the establishment. You cannot take a snapshot in time, a spotlight on the shooting, and then leave out the rest of our political context in the inky blackness and pretend that you've informed the public, or that this is how you properly cover this event, or cover this moment in our political divisiveness, which was of course horrible for the country and horrible for a democracy. And so I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion that Trump is one of the main drivers of it. because he's somebody who has benefited from it the most, from both getting media time and being able to sell his message, from him being able to sell his project, his product, and for him being able to attack his political opponents. He's good at it. He's good at being in the mud, and so he's pushed for that type of divisive rhetoric. That's not to say that he's the only one. Of course, you can find Democrats that do. And if you go down after Donald Trump, it's rhetoric of Biden and Democrats as a main cause. Now, of course, Donald Trump's at 23%. That's at 13%. So a lot less Americans, nearly half, believe that Biden's rhetoric caused this. And I would say that the idea that like Biden's fiery speech about corn pop and malarkey caused somebody to go get an AR, like they're just have the headphones in, like, you know, back in my day in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a corn pop was a bad dude, and but Mousy, you know, he was a nice guy. He's in the audience, and like, no, it's not a, it's a harder sell. It is a harder sell. I mean, I've seen Republicans trying to go with the idea of the bullseye, that Biden wanted to put Trump in the bullseye. It was one of his fundraisers, which Biden then talked about in the Lester Holt interview and saying, no, we meant to focus on him, that the media doesn't focus on his lies during the debate. They don't focus on his agenda, which is out there for the open. That was Biden's response to that. Then, if you look at the rest of it, it's political polarization, lack of gun control, which was a big message of Biden's speech when he was responding to the event. Mental health issues, which you could probably put with the deranged shooter category, and news media rhetoric at 6%. So it seems that most people, the biggest faction here is mental health and deranged shooter, which I think gets to about almost 40% if you wanted to put these in boxes or put these together. And then you get to Trump and his own rhetoric at 23. Then you get Biden before eventually just the general idea of political polarization, which you could put in probably both camps and news media rhetoric. Okay, so diverse reasons for the shooting. I think part of the reason why there's diverse reasons for the shooting is actually for a good reason, and that is we don't know why the shooter did what he did. While a million different people raced out to try to play the lottery of making sure that this deranged psycho was not, you know, part of your group, like, oh, please don't. Okay, please don't be a Muslim. Please don't be a Muslim. Oh, please don't be a Republican. Please don't be a Republican. Oh, no, don't be a Democrat. Don't be a Democrat. Don't be a Democrat. Like, everybody's playing, I saw Jon Stewart talked about it. It's like everybody's playing lottery with, like, what is the demographic makeup of the shooter. But even after he was killed, we've learned details that are conflicting. We found out that he was Republican, but then we found out he also donated to a progressive PAC, but then his friends describe him as a conservative. So we don't really know what motivated. He hasn't released anything to clearly outline his motives for doing this either. His parents were conservative. I mean, it's hard to match it up. And so people have gone to try to find conclusions without that information. And so without a clear guide or any factual basis to build off of, this is the results. People are filling it with their preconceived notions, which include Trump's own rhetoric leading into political divisiveness in the country, psycho shooters, and the news media rhetoric. I do want to say, though, that even though Biden is holding steady, even though he's down, swing voters still are concerned about Biden's age. And according to recent polling from Data for Progress, which is a left-wing poller, mind you, more swing voters are actually concerned about Biden's age post-debate than Trump's criminality. That's not good. If you want this election to be a mandate on the fitness for office of this person, and Biden has tried to say, oh, this is about the ethics of the individual, that I know how to run the office. This guy, you know, he's gonna take the guardrails off. He's gonna go crazy in here. You cannot trust him with the institution. He's a criminal. He's a felon. If you're trying to say that he is unfit for office, then you cannot also at the same time have a crisis of fitness for your candidate. Which is probably part of the reason why we're seeing polling data staying consistent for many Americans, actually the majority of Americans, wanting Joe Biden to drop out, including almost a majority of Biden voters. No, Biden shouldn't drop out, 46%. Yes, Biden should drop out, 41%. Mind you, the majority of Americans also want Donald Trump to drop out, but if the stakes are, we need to do everything we can to beat Donald Trump, and if there's also a question about the fitness of Joe Biden that's undermining the ability to beat Donald Trump, then we have a dilemma here. A dilemma that is now being called out by Representative Adam Schiff, the highest ranking Democrat to date, who just won his race in the primary against, in a heated race, a heated primary in California against a bunch of people. I think it also included, oh God, what's her name? I'm trying to remember. I know it included Barbara Lee, and it included one more progressive woman that a lot of Democrats like. What was her name? Katie Porter, I think. Either way, he won, so he's moving up from the House to the Senate. He got a big a big image in the national spotlight during the Trump impeachment with his long, somewhat dreary speeches on the House floor highlighting Trump's criminality and Trump's violation of the Constitution. And he's quite high ranking compared to all of the previous either swing district Democrats and or lower level to mid-ranking Democrats that were calling on Joe Biden to drop out before. This is the highest ranking Democrat. I even saw that this kind of shaped the confidence of IRI, I'm Really Important, which is one of Biden's biggest supporters on the platform. With him saying before, hey, 90% chance I thought Biden's going to stay in. Now, 70% chance. So this is different than the previous statements. This guy carries weight. This guy's got a quite sizable national profile, and it's coming with whispers that Nancy Pelosi might be on board as well. That Hakeem Jeffries might be looking the other way as this happens. Democrats have until November 7th to decide who our nominee for president is going to be. That means we have 2 to 3 more weeks maximum. That's the registration date in Ohio. October I said October 7th. Yeah, wait, no. June, July. Yeah, no, it's October 7th. After that date, we have to have a nominee or we won't be able to properly register a candidate in all of the states. And even though I don't think we're going to win in Ohio, we certainly still want our candidate to be registered in Ohio. We don't give up on any state. So we have a very short period of time if this switch is going to be made within the party. And in this short period of time, we're also dealing with a messaging crisis and the fallout of the assassination of Trump and Joe Biden now having COVID at 81 years of age, when there's questions about his health and fitness and doing the job. A lot of events making the situation more complicated. I will say, after the Trump assassination, in my mind, I thought Joe Biden had basically locked in the nomination, because I thought this was going to shift the conversation away, that no Democrats would be bold enough to try to usurp Joe Biden during this moment in the country where you need to take this uniting message. But it seems like the opposition just took a few days of rest at most before re-engaging. That might be because they understand that they don't have much time. They got 2 to 3 weeks at most. And the last thing they want to do is start when the buzzer's about to go out at the start of August. I keep saying October. I said October. I meant August. It's August, so it's next month. The 7th of next month. So we only have 2 to 3 weeks left. The gods really be testing us? The gods do be testing us. The gods do be testing us. Stop playing with your damn hair or I'm voting for Trump. Am I doing that a lot? I don't think I'm doing that a lot.